3 years ago, Yossi, Charlie, and I, with Rhoda's cautious permission, went on a journey from Jericho to Jerusalem on an ancient path, a path of the Good Samaritan. That's right, this is the path that Jesus spoke about in the parable of the Good Samaritan. And since the release of the video, we had 1 million views. That's not something we've ever expected to have, I think, when we filmed it.
I think we said it would settle at about 80,000. That was your estimate.
Yeah.
And it went right over.
Oh, immediately.
But that video does not really show what really happened in that trip. So we've decided to get together and share with you some of the gruesome details of what went on. From the bacteria-infected lethal river to the spider infestation at night, we'll show you the footages that we've never shown to anyone before. Footage like the one from the night when we had to build a line of defense against the most bizarre-looking spiders, crossing of the river that was infested, meeting local Bedouin people, donkeys, goats, getting lost, running out of water, finding the true Good Samaritans who gave us water, and many other things that happened that you would probably want to know if you're ever going to take this trip. And of course, last but not least, the circle
of trust. Absolutely.
The circle of trust.
That was great.
All right, so let's not waste any more time and get right into it. Okay, so Rhoda and I flew to the States and we are here with Charlie. And we decided we're gonna do this video and share with you these things that we haven't shared in the original video. But Yossi stayed in Israel, and so we're gonna do a Zoom call. That's how we're gonna connect and make this possible.
Behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes. J to J.
J to J.
Jericho to Jerusalem.
The circle of trust.
Let's go.
Here I come.
Here I come. That's from the video. Okay, so Charlie, I remember before we even got here, there was some difficulties arriving to Israel.
It was terrible. It was unbelievable how badly the trip to Israel went. Every possible thing, not on my account. I mean, I drove to the airport and that was all fine. As soon as we got to the airport, everything was delayed, everything was pushed back, and it didn't look like it was going to happen at all.
I remember that.
He was in Tampa Airport, wasn't he?
I was, and eventually Sergio got to the point where he said he was not in contact with me, and so he had called the airport, he had called the airlines, and they said there's no way he got on that plane. It's because of the connector in Boston. My plane was so late that they said that the LL jet that I flew over on, there's no way I could have made that connection. Impossible.
Okay. Wow. Welcome to Israel.
Welcome to Israel.
I just remember there was so much secrecy behind all this.
Ah, that's true.
That is
so
right.
many secrets.
Nobody knew that I was coming, with one exception, which was my wife.
The circle of trust started in the US and Israel before we ever got to it.
Circle of trust coming soon, so keep watching. Okay, so while you were on the plane landing and Rhoda and I were waiting for you in the airport, we meet randomly our friend. I haven't seen him in a few years.
This was crazy.
And we just met him entirely out of the blue, and you can kind of see me. We're just waiting there, waiting for Charlie, and then our friend just shows up, Vova. Yossi, you know Vova.
Oh, wow. Yeah, of course. Wow, he changed so much. He's still thin. That's what my mother would say.
What are the chances we're waiting there and then just Vova shows up? I served with him in the Air Force.
It was so cool seeing him.
It was a great start. And then Charlie came out and
wow, and in the video it looked so easy, Charlie. I mean, it just looked like lights, camera, action, takeoff, landing, and you're there, and
No, that was not the case, Yossi. It was terrible. It was the worst flight that I have ever been on in my life.
And here's the interesting part. You were in the air for a day coming here. You were in the air for a day leaving Israel back to the States. And you stayed here for like 2 days. So you were about the same time in the air as you were in Israel.
Absolutely.
Literally, he was 2 days in Israel, and then the hike part, and then day of coming and day of leaving.
Yeah.
Well, the plan worked though, because nobody Nobody knew that I had gone. Even my son, who took me down to Miami with his girlfriend at the time, who is now his wife, they took me to Miami to get a passport, and they never asked, why do you need they didn't ask anything. And so they had no idea that I was leaving, flying, and I didn't lie. I told people I'm going to Boston because I did. And then I was in Boston and I'm back home, and that was it.
So, and the reason for the secrecy was to surprise the church. We were going to film Charlie, take the hike, then he comes back, and then I'm going to show it to church. And I go, when? When did this happen?
And that worked.
It worked.
It worked beautifully.
And jet lag, how did you not face jet lag? No, I don't think you slept at all.
Very little if I slept at all.
Hey, Sergio, what's up there, buddy? Wow. Good to see you. Wow. Yeah, okay, Sergio's coming back. Thank you.
So look, you see, we've got bars, fig bars, we've got energy bars, about 12 of those. We have beef jerky, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over there. We've got half a kilo of cabanas meat. We've got snacks, bamba. We got half a kilo of dried fruit. Okay, so the night before we left, I remember we packed so many things, and Rhoda prepared all the food. You prepared all of this for us.
Yeah, a lot of bars and nuts that you could take with you. And Charlie brought in some beef jerky, which is great.
When I walked in, I thought you guys are leaving somewhere, like flying. So many bags on the table.
We've got half a kilo of nuts. We've got peanut butter mixed with honey. We've got pitas and more snacks, hummus, manahama soups, 2 cans of tuna, shakshuka materials, peppers, and other stuff, big vegetables with 8 eggs.
What are we missing?
Looks just fine.
Well, you did an amazing job. Beautiful,
Thank you.
beautiful. Everything was set up so beautifully.
So we were very well equipped. I prepared the water. I was in charge of the water.
Which was the only thing that really went wrong. It was almost terminal. It went so wrong.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay. So we wake up early in the morning. I remember we set up in our 2 cars because only 3 of us were going to go. Rhoda is going to stay in Jerusalem. So we took 2 cars. Yeah. And so the first thing that happens in the morning is a flat tire. Go with it like this. Charlie said it should be fine as long as it's in the back wheel. But what we didn't show in the video is how we fixed the flat tire. So we found a place where you can fix our tire. It's great. It's not even 8 in the morning and they were open. Praise the Lord. So because we were driving from Nazareth to Jericho or to the Dead Sea, we took Road 90. And in the Road 90, you go through the territories, the Palestinian territories. And there was a city. And on the road, we find a place that fixes tires, but the man speaks Arabic, so your dad starts speaking with him, and he fixes the tire for...
Like $4.
Yeah, US, about $4.
15 shekels.
That was phenomenal. And then it was so cool to see Sohel not missing an opportunity, takes out the Bible and start sharing some verses and the gospel with the man who was...
That was the most tender part of the entire trip for me, was seeing Suhail talk to this person with so much respect and so much courtesy and so much love. It was unbelievable how tender he was with this gentleman.
That was something else.
He's always ready.
And he offered to pay him 30 instead of 15, remember?
Oh, really? No, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Wow.
If we would have been stuck, I think Suhail would have been the Good Samaritan to rescue us.
That was a good start to the trip. Wake up, first thing is flat tire, and the mind goes, oh, it's something bad, but the Lord used it for good.
Absolutely.
Who's gonna fix it?
And knowing where we're gonna end up, because we thought at first that we're gonna fix it like right there, but it was too early, everybody was closed, and it is so much more expensive.
And it was a Sabbath day, so everybody was closed.
And yet
Except this
somehow
person.
we made it to the Palestinian territories, which is
On the
it
flat
is about
tire.
like 45 minutes or something, and on a flat tire.
But of course, it was my 5th flat tire or something like this. And that was 5 more after that, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure.
Sohel, a year later, Sohel bought me a birthday gift. He got me a kit.
Tires. Smart move.
Okay, so then we finally made it to the destination, which was like the border of Jericho. But I mean, that place, it wasn't a safe place.
No.
No, in fact, this place, there was a few terror attacks in the past, and there were even people robbed there, even until today.
Or something happened to a family, like just, I'm not sure if it was a few days before or something happened right there at the river.
Yeah. So it's not that safe of an area to be walking, but we figured we're 3 guys and...
I remember we were sitting at your place trying to figure it out. How are we going to get into there? Because they're like different routes. And so I think the safest one was to take this road and, not to actually enter into Jericho because of all the army posts. So we decided to do the kind of like the workaround, taking the trail and then not actually entering Jericho, but just kind of hiking towards the beginning of the trail. So that was quite an adventure, just planning that.
I remember that. It took us a while. It took us a while to plan it all out. So it would be as safe as we could make it. And I actually even thought not as even getting so close to Jericho. And that's one in the video I'm saying, let's do the shortcut. Let's take the shortcut down. My mind is, this looks easy and safer than entering Jericho. And we just cross it over and
that was one of the few safe things you did during the entire journey. Good job.
But didn't you want to take a shortcut even earlier?
I saw goats doing parkour. I mean, they're like, it was just like drop like this, and they're just like, slowly going and jumping. I was like, we're not going to clear that.
No.
Okay, but the area, think about the area. The first thoughts we had, we don't emphasize this enough in the video, is how much sense the parable makes, especially this road.
Complete sense.
So narrow. And
Caves. People could come right out of any of these numerous caves or holes that are there. They could waylay a person. Everything is plausible. It all comes to life.
Yeah, and then even if somebody's lying there, hurt or maybe half dead, and they're maybe even not showing much movement, and then people pass by, one might even wonder, well, it's a dangerous area. You might think, this person is pretending to be dead. He's going to attack me. So I'm not going to go and help him, because I'm endangering myself. Maybe this is also somebody. Like all kinds of scenarios could have been even thinking about. It's probably, even if people are hurt here, it'll be way more difficult to even help them. And it makes
it come alive.
I mean, if somebody attacks you, remember like how vast the place is? Like you're in a desert.
You could holler all day.
Like, who's going to help?
And nobody would come.
Not very different from the time of the Bible.
Yes, absolutely.
I always wondered, like, after this thing, like, the Bible says that the Samaritan went from Jerusalem to Jericho. Why did we do it the other way around and up?
Because Jerusalem is such a great finale.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, sure enough. Or maybe it's involved. I don't know. Hello, how are you?
Hello. Wow.
It's good. Okay, and then we got to the place, and we barely started, and I think we were already tired.
Oh, we were already tired by the time we got there. That's correct. It was maybe 9 a.m. It wasn't that late, but we're just not walkers. Yossi is, but we weren't, and so we were already exhausted.
Yeah, but this was nice. Take some rest.
Unfortunately, we can't go in because there's no filming allowed inside, at least according to this sign.
No cameras, no dogs.
So we're gonna send Yossi in to look in and describe us what he sees.
I actually entered in.
Yes, you did. And the funniest part, when you come out, you're saying, you couldn't film anything. I'm waiting for you. And then you say, but I filmed it. That was such a shock to me. It's like,
Your camera is a cheap Chinese thing, and yet it was a wonderful camera. Really took great pictures.
Yeah, the colors came out great.
The thing about the monastery, which most people may not understand, because we're saying we're out in the middle of nowhere, and then there's all these people, and some of them are old, some are women. Where did they come from if you're in the middle of nowhere? Mm-hmm. But what happens is there's a road that turns right down at this one spot, and those people can be taken down to the monastery. But if you're starting in Jericho and going up to Jerusalem, there's nothing else. It's just where this road happens to curve, where they've set this up so people can easily get to the monastery.
Yeah, some actually ride donkeys. I've seen people that take donkey rides from the mountain.
That's correct. You can rent donkeys and take them down.
Too bad that's not the route we took, but our route was more fun.
Next time, donkeys.
Next time.
But I think it was like one of the most spectacular views I've ever seen from there, because I climbed, I think, up to the highest steeple there, or like, you know, to the church. It has different levels. So I climbed to one of the highest ones, and it was so beautiful. I mean, you see it in the video, but I think just being there is even more breathtaking.
Yes, agreed. And then right then we went up the mountain.
No, we first went down by the river and took the wrong way. And so we had to backtrack and then go ahead.
Okay, that was the first time we went the wrong way, or I led you the wrong way. Yeah.
Well, your phone led us the wrong way.
From St. George Monastery, we continued the little ancient path that climbs all the way up to the top of the cliff.
That was the first time. But then we did find our way, and then once you get up, there's this beautiful aqueduct. It is unbelievable. That was probably my most excited moment of the entire trip, is seeing this aqueduct. It's just, we've been walking already half a day, it's all so dry, and then suddenly there's this water.
Wow, that's the spot.
We have been walking for so long, and to find water in the middle of a desert is...
That's a water slide, an ancient water slide.
All I want to do is just jump right in.
Oh, it's cold!
It was incredible. Now, I will say this, is that there's only one part of the entire series, or the entire filming, that I did. And it was at the very beginning, just as we were getting out of the car and we were getting ready to say goodbye. And Sergio said, would you hold the camera for a minute? And I held it. And Rhoda, of course, went and gave Sergio a big hug and a kiss. And she said, now be careful. And he said, oh, we will. And she said, now promise. And this was the beginning of the breaking of the promises, was that scene right there.
Please be careful, okay? You better be careful.
Instead of putting his foot down and seeing if it's slippery, maybe it's just algae or something, he just jumped in. And if it was slippery, he would have gone right down that chute and he would have been dead. And this is the first of several times that I could have killed him myself. So there you go. He broke his promise almost immediately.
Well, not intentionally. I did not know this was dangerous.
I'll be quiet.
It looked very safe.
It was very safe after we found out.
I know I can't hold you back from your adventures.
I was very safe. Yossi knows me, how safe this is. Very safe.
Yep.
Yes, he's not commenting much.
We are at the ancient water slide in the middle of the Judean desert. This is marvelous.
You can see the algae on the bottom of it. The thing is that the algae was resting on about 3 inches deep of sand. And so it was actually pretty firm foothold. It was a little slippery on the top. But if it was just on concrete, it would have been so slippery, he would have just been gone. It would have been the end of him. And it was a long ride down, wasn't it?
That's why I say ancient water slides.
But Charlie got convinced, so he jumped in right after you.
Yeah, once I saw that he wasn't dead, I had to get in there. We were like little kids out there.
Charlie's wife didn't make him promise.
No, there was no
There you go.
promises.
You know, I didn't go in, remember?
All right, why didn't you go in?
Yeah, I mean, I thought there might be another monastery. So I had to be decent. But yeah, I felt the water was so cold. I thought, man, well, later during the day it's going to be hot. I'll get in. And I did.
And you did.
Okay, and then we kept going. As we were up walking on that aqueduct, there's a local Bedouin boy walking on the edge of the cliff.
One of the most incredible parts of my memory is that boy. When I show people the video and we talk about it, I always talk about him. Because there he is. It's probably 800 to 1,000 foot drop. And he was just walking without looking, just fearless. And he was actually taking care of us. He was making sure that his goats wouldn't butt us or do anything like that. And he actually, I believe, lived in a cave up there. And they lived out in the middle of absolutely nowhere. There were a couple other people you could see in the cave, but he was the one that was taking care of us, and you could tell what he was doing. He wasn't worried that we were going to threaten him. He was worried that we would get hurt by his goats. And so he's just walking along, watching over us, and it was a very tender thing.
Wow.
It was.
That is so cool.
But I was scared to look because we were worried, but I bet that's just
what he does. Yeah, he was like a little good shepherd over us. It was very, very wonderful to see.
Winterland, tell me all your secrets. Fill me in on your wildest moments.
But then I attempted not something similar, and it wasn't really an attempt. And I didn't know that it was even dangerous again. But there was this bridge. Do you remember the bridge?
That was the second time. I was so upset at you. To this day, I'm angry at you over it. I told you not to do it. No, it'll be okay.
I think we voted on it, actually. We voted on crossing the bridge.
Well, I think we voted on going down in the gully below the bridge. And Sergio decided that he's just going to be the rebel. Because I know that you walked down with me. I do know that.
I was the only one to go.
You were the only one that...
Well, it was solid concrete. It was short distance. I calculated, just engineered mind type of thing. Just look through the angles, and it looked very safe, and was like foot by foot, and there's water, so it should be very safe.
Basically, what Sergio was saying is that I'm going to see if I can get a good shot to impress people with this. And it is really an ancient thing. It's been there for years and years. And if his weight had caused this thing to break, we would have carried a dead body for quite a few miles before, or maybe we would have just let him stay there and you and I finished the trip. I don't know. But it was very, very dangerous, and I was not happy with Sergio at this time.
Very safe.
Maybe he was looking for an alternative slide.
He might have gotten it, but he did get across safely, and so I was relieved, but I'm still unhappy with that to this day.
Well, I think he was just, somebody has to do it. So, Charlie and Yossi, they're not as experienced. So he's like,
I guess that's Charlie's not going to do it.
He took it all on him, all the responsibilities. Like, I'll do it.
All the responsibility. That's correct.
What a good friend.
Very good friend.
I mean, Yossi's a good friend, backing you up.
I thought I'm a good friend for taking responsibility.
No, he's defending you for being so reckless.
I think we should go to the next point, because I don't think this one I can get out of this one.
You're probably not going to get out of this one, but there's more. There are more.
Okay, and then we found the square pool. Remember the square pool?
That was incredible. Now, something about the square pool is it doesn't fit in the timeline of the video, but the square pool is actually part of the aqueduct, not the later pools that basically saved our lives. But what happened here at the square pool is, if you look carefully and you watch the video, you'll see that the pool at first was very stagnant, and that's because it was filled up with all kinds of debris. And so I went in there and I went swimming in there and I stank like the dickens because of the stagnant water. But then I realized if I move all this debris, it'll flow quickly. And then Yossi got in and he just looked like a fish in the water. It was wonderful to see him.
And absorbed all the debris as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
And then these also local guys came by, and
what a great bunch of guys!
They just brought chairs and coffee, and they offered us things. And
they had like a SUV or a Land Rover or something to get out there.
Did you guys have coffee then with them?
I don't think we took it. Yeah, but they were offering the like.
They were offering, and very nice people. But they knew the spot, and it was a very remote spot. But they knew it, and they came out into some fields.
Yeah, but because you can't get there with a car, they had to 4-on-4 through these mountains. And
that's correct.
I think Yossi's right. They look way too polished to be from a Bedouin community.
Had a Jeep, yeah.
And they had a Jeep. Well, Bedouins can have Jeeps.
When I get closer.
And by the way, me and that boy were not the only one on the edge of the cliffs.
That's correct. There were lots of goats out there.
And you didn't pet any of them? How could you pass by goats and not pet them? Take one home.
I mean, they were calling for it. Look how cute they are.
Look how cool they are.
And also there were more people along the way. People are riding a donkey.
Riding a donkey, and they were also way out in the middle of nowhere. I think what they did probably is go to Jericho for shopping for like the month or something. And they were a very nice family, but you can see this is how they live, out in the middle of nowhere. And they just come in and go out with donkeys. So it's very much like what you would expect of the time of Jesus.
Because it was so cool, because this is what we would see in the Bible times, and here we are in the middle of nowhere, and there's two people, probably husband and wife, with two donkeys.
Way out in Nowheresville.
That looks like grain. That looks like grain.
They might have cattle, and is that
Hi, sweetheart.
Shalom.
Shalom.
ננו, שאת זוכרת אותנו?
Sergio.
She loves them.
Guys, we were looking at the people swimming, but then we looked at our watches and we said, like, well, if we want to make the day's journey, we better go. So we didn't stop to refresh and to swim, and we were running really low on water. Remember that?
Yeah.
Well, the water was a problem.
That would have been like 26 kilometers to the very end, but then we're like, oh, let's take the long way, and we're like, and then that's where the adventure really began, I think.
Yeah, up until now, we were tired. I mean, you could see me there when the people with the donkeys came. Our feet were up. We were already tired. I already didn't want to go forward, but like you say, this is just the beginning of the adventures.
Way beginning. Things went downhill from there. That's correct. But it was worth it now that we look back on it. I'll say that much.
When I get closer. Winterland.
Okay, and so we go along this river, and we didn't show this in the video. We crossed it about, I don't know, dozens of times.
I would say 50 or 60,000. It was quite a few times we crossed it.
We crossed it so many times, and every time we cross it, it's kind of nice. At the same time, your feet get wet, but it's refreshing. There's water. I liked it, but then it got annoying, and then it was like, because the trail takes you through the river, in and out, in and out, in and out.
Because there's no trail. There's no set trail, and every year apparently they have to recalibrate how you can get up to, on this path, how you can get to Jerusalem, because it shifts with the river as it raises or as the rocks move. So we had to keep going back and forth and back and forth.
Do you guys remember? Every time I had to take off my boots. I think if we would have like...
Oh, yes.
Well, if you didn't wear shoes, you wouldn't have those problems.
We could have saved like 2 hours if I wouldn't have taken my boots. Every time I'd like take them off, put them on, cross the river, take them off, cross the river, put them back on, and then do this like 50 times again. We could have saved like a few hours.
You just don't wear shoes. That'll take care of it.
I'll try that next time.
Holy mackerel. There's just no end to how much we have to go in the water. Oh, it's just unbelievable. Whoa.
But that was not the real problem. So we get to the end of this river, and it merges into another one. We get to the end of it, and we see a big sign. And the sign says, high contamination
Wastewater.
Do
not get into this water.
You're still alive. I'm happy.
Yeah, we're alive, but I got to tell you, if you look at the river, it's obvious. And because I was in the water field for about 25 years of my life, you see the algae there. Algae is what takes up impurities, and it won't be there without them. And so the high amount of algae and the different types of algae, some of them were radioactive, should have alerted us to the fact that it was contaminated river. But we had just spent probably 6 hours going up this river back and forth, and it was contaminated.
I remember.
Charlie, remember there were different theories. I think Sergio saw a frog, and he said, frogs are creatures that live in very clean water. So we disregarded that. So there were a few theories going around.
But look at the algae. Look how much of it.
And it was all the way up and down the river, so it's very contaminated.
And foamy
river.
at places, and algae.
And frogs? You saw a frog? But don't they live also in swamps?
Frogs live everywhere. If there's water, there's going to be a frog.
Doesn't matter.
Like I just said, different theories. There are different theories. And I do remember having all kind of weird stuff on my body when we came back.
Oh, you had all kinds of infections. And when I got back to the U.S., you were showing me every couple weeks something different is growing on him. And it had to be from this.
I had to go to a doctor. It was pretty bad. This or what's coming next.
Yeah, well, that's correct.
Of trust.
Yeah, circle of trust.
The circle of trust.
Well, you guys know what happened to me, right?
What happened to you?
Well, after getting into the water, I had a big sign that grew on my back, "Don't enter the water."
Yes. So what happened is apparently there was a spill of sewage from nearby city.
Not a spill, a continuous stream of sewage. There's a certain river that we have a name for, which I won't use, but there was a river that we passed that dumps into this. And I will say this much, it was brown, absolutely brown river. I won't say any more, but you can imagine. And it spilled right into this river.
And that brown river is incidentally where we chose our camping site. We just had no more energy. This was it. It was getting dark. And I remember the moment we set our feet on this, it looked like a parking lot.
It was a parking lot.
And Charlie, you just collapsed and you did not get up until morning. I don't remember you ever getting up. I think we moved you.
That's correct. And Yossi was saying we got to do stretches and I'm like, I never got up off my back. I did. You asked me, Charlie, we want you to blow up the beds. And so I blew up the beds and it was all the energy I could get. That's all I could muster. I hadn't slept in 2 days and I'm blowing up beds and then laying on the ground.
And as you're doing that, I'm going and searching for fire, for wood. And there's nothing because there's this brown river and there's mosquitoes everywhere. It's getting dark and we can't find anything. It took us, I don't know, half an hour, an hour to just find one branch to prepare our food, which is the only food we have. And if we don't get this fire, there'll be no food.
That's correct. And what it was, there was reeds that you collected, but they burned up so quickly that if you didn't find that one log, and Sergio was so tired, he was carrying one log behind him, just dragging it. But those reeds were they're more like kindling wood. They just burned up almost immediately, but they were enough to get the log burning so that we could cook on it.
Yeah, and the bamboo, I mean, that burnt in minutes.
We found lots of wood in the river, so it was like really wet. So it took a while to get started.
Well, after finding out what was in the river, I think it makes sense that we did not use it.
Yossi, I got to tell you, this is the best shakshuka I've ever had in my life.
That's the only shakshuka he ever had in his life.
Guys, you got to do some stretches.
Huh, you're kidding.
So let's do some arm stretches.
Arm stretches. Okay.
Oh, but this is really stressing my neck.
This is hurting me. Hurry
This
up.
is hurting my neck.
Is that it?
And while we're sitting there, this random couple comes by, just a young man.
They were Jewish.
Yeah, and they were from nearby town. Anatot, yes. And we barely could speak to them. We were so tired. Charlie couldn't answer a single word. When he asked us, what do we do? Charlie couldn't say a word. Charlie was just, I think Charlie was somewhere else.
I was laying there very close to you, just listening.
And I was like, oh, Charlie is a pastor. And the guy goes, oh, preach to me. Charlie couldn't say a word. You were done.
I was completely cut.
But if you could, what would you tell him?
If I could, obviously I get a little passionate about Jesus, and I would have started because they were Jewish with their own scriptures, and I would have shown where he can be seen even in the Old Testament, or what they would call the Tanakh. And I would have talked the ear off all night long. But I literally did not have strength to speak. I was that tired the first day.
Well, like what? What scripture would you?
I'd take them to the feasts of the Lord first from Leviticus 23. I'd take them to Abraham and talk about righteousness by faith and how that precedes the law. And then, of course, you don't ever want to skip over Isaiah 52 and 53. And that would have been something that before I read that to them, what I would have done is asked them, I'm going to read this to you, and I want you to tell me who this is speaking about. And you read a person from Israel, Isaiah 52:13 through 53:12, and they will always say the same thing. Oh, that's talking about Jesus. And then only after that, you want to tell them that comes from your scriptures. It comes from Isaiah. And they're always blown away at that.
Ah, so you read the passage without saying where it's from.
That's correct. And just say, who is this referring to?
Oh, I never thought of it this way. That's so cool.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's great. Well, I hope that he's watching because he asked the question and there's the answer. That would be cool if he ever sees this video. It's like, hey, finally.
So, Sergio, what are you doing?
So this is a cold brew by Charlie's recipe.
So you said all I have to do is just put the coffee inside. Where's the lid? And then shake it real hard. And leave it in here for 10 hours, which we don't have. We're gonna sleep probably just about 5. And then should have some coffee in the morning, cold brew coffee. We'll see how this works. Charlie, this works with American coffee, right?
I'll tell you something right now. You might sleep 5 hours, but I'll be in bed a lot longer than that.
You can taste the grain.
There's a lot of grain in there.
That's good. That's strong.
It's manly coffee.
But then my phone had no reception the entire night, and I wanted to talk to Rhoda desperately, tell her we're okay, that we are here and we're gonna camp here for the night, and I couldn't. No reception. I tried to walk around, nothing. And then this couple, they have a phone that had reception, and so I asked them to call, and I called Rhoda, and we spoke. And then I said, I'm gonna have to give them the phone back, so I won't be able to talk to you until tomorrow. And that was it.
But do you know what happened the next morning?
I remember. We wake up. And then Yossi's there talking to his wife on his phone. And I go, Yossi, how do you have reception? Oh, I always had it.
I never didn't have reception.
Well,
They just didn't ask.
Well, ask and it will be given to you.
There you go.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. And then what? We gave them beef jerky.
Beef jerky.
And they've never tried it before.
They
in their
were
lives.
blown away. They were completely blown away at the beef jerky. They said, this is unbelievable.
And then Charlie had an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I said that somebody ought to franchise that in Israel because, it's kosher. Those people absolutely loved it. And when I went there, I took beef jerky to the family. I brought it for the trip. Every person that tried it was just blown away at it. And so if you're going to go to Israel, take beef jerky. You'll make a lot of friends. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, start a franchise over there for beef jerky.
Jerk beef for the journey.
Jerk beef for the journey. That's what you want to do.
Matador, made with 100% beef, gives you the fuel you need to tackle what's next. Made with 100% beef. Power through what you gotta do so you can get back to what you want to do.
Powering up now.
No, I want some of that power.
You got power up, bro.
Okay. I think it's time to talk about the circle of trust.
I think you're right. Yossi, are we ready?
I'm all circles. Are we gonna have enough left for tomorrow?
Nope.
Yeah, let's do just one.
So we didn't take any tents with screen or anything. We were going to sleep flat on the ground with nothing but our...
A mattress and then a sleeping bag.
And it's like this
yoga
thin
mats,
mattress.
yeah.
So we're this parking lot in the middle of nowhere next to this brown river, and we're going to be sleeping right there. And then we take on the flashlight, we look at the ground, and there's this bizarre spiders, giant big spiders and ants, and mosquitoes are of course flying everywhere. That's a given.
Centipedes. There were little bugs everywhere.
There are ants everywhere. It's infested with ants and poisonous spiders. So we didn't bring anything against that, but we're gonna try. We're gonna use this sunscreen and do a perimeter around our sleeping bags and see if that's gonna put like a block. They're gonna smell it and run away from it. But before we gotta test it, let's find an ant and see what it does if I do around it. I thought, wait a second, what if our sunscreen can deter those bugs? So I pulled out the sunscreen and I sprayed it on the floor to test it. And we tested on this one ant. We didn't spray the ant, we sprayed just on the floor, like this line, and wanted to see if the ant is gonna cross that line or smell it and go back.
Okay, you see that? And there goes the ant. Yeah, he did not care about that. So let's not waste the sunscreen.
Ooh,
Oh, wait a second.
it went away.
He did? He didn't like it.
And it actually worked.
It worked.
It smells it and it just goes the other way. So I said, let's make a circle
Around
us.
us. Yeah. And then Yossi immediately came up with
The circle of trust.
the circle of
Circle
trust.
of trust.
So
And
you guys snuggled.
we had to snuggle because I didn't have enough of the material. So as I'm spraying, I'm realizing it's about to end. And because it takes a lot, you need to, because the ground absorbs all the moisture. So I had to do a thick line. And I'm realizing I'm going to have to make a very small circle.
I'm also trapping some ants inside the water.
Check for those spiders because they look really bad. They got gray
All right,
bodies. and
I don't
we
think we
wanna
have
get bit
anything
by
left.
that.
We make this little circle and we get our mattresses as close to each other as possible. And we're thinking this is going to help us build this defense line against this weird insects at night. And Yossi, you had one net that you gave me, I think. Did you get a net?
I did not get a net. No.
Sergio was really tired, and he really took one for the team. So we said, well, he should get the net.
Well, somebody has to rest because the next day, somebody needs to lead the way, find water.
Yeah, somebody did get rest. Somebody did get rest.
And that wasn't me because, Charlie, what happened at the night?
Well, I was all night long being bitten by mosquitoes. It's always the case, so it's just the way it is with me. I'm the one that gets bit. Apparently you did too as well. But all night long, you are next to me, Sergio, and you're snoring. Like, I have never heard such snoring in my life. And I thought, I just wanted to just put my hand over your mouth and smother you. And the next morning I woke up and it was Yossi. He slept the whole night long. And Sergio said, did you hear him snoring? That's all we could hear all night. We were being bitten alive. We're hearing Yossi sleeping happily.
Not only Yossi was sleeping the whole night, he had reception.
All night long.
I was sleeping, I was snoring, and I was happy.
That's right.
So this night was memorable, not for just what happened, but what happened after for months to come, because mosquito bites, they go away after a few days, maybe a week, 2 maximum. But I had some bubbles on my skin that stayed for 3 months. We went to a dermatologist, to a doctor, and he said that's some kind of weird bite. You have maybe an infection. They couldn't know.
I think the circle of trust actually invited all the mosquitoes and spiders. They really trusted you.
Oh, well, I like to believe it worked.
I think it did.
Yeah. Who knows what kind of other spiders would come in there if we didn't have that. So anybody watching this now thinking, hey, I would never be in a situation like this. But if you're tired,
you'll do it.
Yeah.
So all you need to do is just pop this and add some hot water.
It's boiling.
Menachema. Okay.
Menachema.
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 Now, did you realize that night we still had no clue how low our water supply is?
So here's what happened. When we were at home, I said each person needs 3 liters of water per day for a hike this big. And so I packed 3 liters of water for each one of us. And it was a lot of water.
But the calculation was for 1 day, not for 2.
Yeah.
And so here's what happened. I realized, and Sergio will deny this, but I realized from the very beginning we didn't have enough water. And I did not, and you might not know this, but I didn't drink any water the first day. Sergio said, here, everybody want water? And I said, no, I'm going to save mine. And worse than that is Sergio was taking it and he was washing his hands with it and he put some on his face and he was like pampering himself with it. And I'm like, Sergio, I know we don't have enough water. And so I said, I'm not going to drink. And I didn't drink any water the entire day. I might have had a little bit at the end of the day, but that was a real problem that we ended up suffering for the second day.
It is a nice day, but it is hot. We got to keep that water on a tight budget, on a tight lid. That water, we got to keep it.
We got like 12 liters of water, enough for a week.
Okay.
I was sure I got enough water.
No, you took extra water. And the point we were at the car and you're pulling your stuff and I see like 6 extra bottles of water. And I tell you, you need to take those. Aren't you taking those? And you're like, no, I calculated. We don't need those.
That's right.
I gotta get it out, just temporary.
Okay, so the 6-pack, how are we going to take it?
6-pack.
So,
And he left them in the car.
Yeah, because we bought them and I said, we just need to take 3 per person.
yeah, you were thinking of just that one day.
One day.
One day, and it was enough to wash Sergio's hands several times, and everything went well. Everything was fine the first day.
Are you ready?
I don't know. I got butterflies in my stomach. This is like a 40-kilometer hike in a middle of nowhere. The Good Samaritan road.
Each day has enough trouble of its own. Let tomorrow take care of itself. So Sergio was thinking about that one day. So biblically, he was correct.
And then comes the second day, when early in the morning, we realize we're out of water. Literally in our last sip.
I don't think I've ever been so thirsty in my life. We're running low on water. We did not take enough. And we're running. We took about 3 liters of water per person, but it turned out to be not enough for 2 days. And so we're running low on water. It's getting tough.
You were completely out of water?
Completely out of
Completely. We were sitting there. If you watch the original video, you can see it. We're all sitting, 3 of us, and we're up on a hillside. And Sergio and Yossi and I, the 3 of us are sitting there. And Sergio says, I never appreciated water so much. And if you watch my head, if you watch closely in that, I shook my head. I was so angry at him, but I didn't want to say anything. But I thought I could kill this guy right now.
I've never appreciated water as much as I do now. Me too.
He's washing with his hands and he's enjoying the water. And I've never appreciated water so much. And I thought, I've never been without water so much.
Oh, man. And I remember Charlie talking about David and his warriors mustering strength, going through the desert, running away, hiding in caves from Saul. I was like, oh, man.
I'm crying and laughing right now, but it wasn't funny back then.
We were really in bad shape that second day. It was a very stressful time on all of us.
This bottle was the last.
That was the last of the water.
That was the last sip right there. That was the last sip. I think I have one more sip left in there.
Yossi looking at you like, just give me some of that water.
Where is your water, guys? I'm the only one drinking.
It was all gone. It was washed away.
Hey, boo-boo.
Oh, see, I have reception there.
Yeah, you had reception everywhere.
Reception everywhere.
איך אנחנו? אנחנו... אני חושב שנגיע בחיים. אבל ממש כיף. גם שחינו הרבה. יש פה מים. ממש כיף. כן.
And then after that, we kept on going those hills, and they seemed like they were never ending.
Never ending. Just they'd circle around, they'd come back. And as I said in the video, it didn't look like anything when you're starting. But by the time you get to the end, you had no idea how difficult that walk was because everything was hidden from the initial view.
Wow.
Charlie, how many times do we remember David's warriors?
At least 2 or 3. They came to mind continuously because those people just lived that way. And they had to carry stuff in wineskins or, goat skins or whatever. And we were all set to go. And yet we were completely unprepared and we weren't on a battle or anything.
Which warrior of David do you think Sergio would have been?
Probably the one that got stabbed and his guts went all over the place. I don't know.
Asahel.
Asahel. Probably Asahel.
But you know what? While we're all going through all these difficulties, Rhoda was sleeping in a comfortable room in Jerusalem.
She was in a hotel. She had water coming in with servants and, all that kind of stuff and probably big fluffy bed and everything. Yeah.
Well, it's not as exaggerated as Charlie, but it was nice. I mean,
So while we were out of water, you were probably sitting in the restaurant.
She was drinking the bottled water that you left in the car.
Probably. We had enough water.
And then after walking all those hills, the endless hills, hill after hill, mountain after mountain, we finally got to another river, Prut.
And the algae ended.
And the algae ended, it was much cleaner, it was clean river, and that you can actually swim in that one. And wow, did that feel nice.
I hadn't drank probably one little bottle, not one of the big ones, one of the little bottles for a day and a half at this point. And I said to them, they were both hot and tired too. I said, if you get into this water, your skin is going to absorb it. Remember that? And within seconds, we were refreshed. And my favorite part of the entire video is when Sergio gets into the water after setting up the cameras, and you can literally see the joy on his face. And he lets out a giant laugh because it was so needed at that point for us. And it probably saved our lives. It probably did, to have that water absorbing into our bodies.
So Charlie was so dry, I think when he got into the river, I think that the river shrank. He absorbed so much water.
Yeah, and then we got into the first pool, but when we got out, we kept going, and there was another pool.
And we just, one more, and we'd stop, and when we get in the water, next pool, oh, we got to do it one more time.
And then, if that wasn't enough, we meet these nice people from the nature reserves that give us not just water, bunch of water, everything I did not take with us, but also this wonderful tea.
So this is lemongrass, hyssop. What else did she say?
This is lemongrass, sage, and hyssop. And it's clear, but it's the best tea I've ever had in my life.
That was really the most wonderful tea I've ever had. And it wasn't just because I was tired and thirsty, but it was just so sweet and natural.
And it was amazing. Like no sugar, just pure green tea.
Yeah, I never thought drinking tea in such hot weather would be any good for me, but wow, that refreshed
That's
us.
what the Bedouins do, man.
Oh.
Yeah, they do. You're right, Yossi. And the herbs probably like heal your body and just give you so
Rejuvenate
much energy.
you.
Yeah, rejuvenate you. So those are so good for you.
And they were such nice people. I still remember their names, but I won't give them. But they were really, really wonderful
You remember
people.
their names after 3 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
I will never forget them. They're just such wonderful people.
I think before we went on this walk, we should have let you organize how much should be taken.
I wouldn't have had a clue. I would have taken less, for sure.
We're done with the trail that is in the mountains, woods, reeds, rivers, and now we're on to a paved path to Jerusalem.
And after getting rejuvenated, we were set to our last push to get to Jerusalem, to go up the hills, to make the ascent into Jerusalem.
Wait, did you say push or brutal torture?
It was brutal torture.
It was brutal torture. It's because you're at that low river of Prat and you had to go up
All the way.
all the way to the mountains of Jerusalem. And it also seemed endless. From afar, when we were standing there and we were seeing this big ascent.
Brutal.
You
even asked me in the video about it.
We had to walk on concrete and the angle changed. It was like this all the time. It was like 45 degrees up and up and up.
Concrete, asphalt, and dirt roads.
Yeah, look at this angle, which is an incline, constant incline. And from afar here, it looks, well, it's a mountain, maybe it's not too much, but it was so brutal. And the sun, the direct sun.
Very, I'll tell you, one of the most memorable moments for me was when we were in this general area. It was still where there was asphalt, but it was so hot that you guys said we have to stop. And I was wearing, the Arab headdress because I figured that would be more appropriate. And so I was fine. But I remember you two standing, there was a little ledge that stuck out maybe 10 inches. Do you remember this? And there was just enough shade where the two of you could stand as upright as possible. And you stood there for probably 10 or 12 minutes, 15 minutes under enough shade to get the top of your head cool.
Oh yeah, we were like lizards.
You were like lizards. That's exactly right. In just the only shade anywhere. And at the end of the video, you said you took 2 lessons with you. One was shade and one was water. And the shade was because you had about 10 inches of shade on the top of your head. That's how hot and brutal it was in this area.
So at this part of the hike, I noticed something. Before, I mean, even with water or without water, Sergio used to smile. But when we started going up,
That's right.
Like his smile started changing. Like, just like the 45 degrees angle, like it started going down.
I don't think I've ever felt like this weird beating in the heart. I think the heart rate went really high up unnaturally.
Probably an AFib or something.
And I felt like AFib. Yeah, it felt like AFib, like I'm skipping beats. It was almost scary at one point. I'm thinking I should slow down because I don't know what's going to happen.
There's one other thing that happened is anytime we got off of the main path, which we had to do at times, the thorns were so bad that I actually had to put on my sandals.
There's no way I can walk in those brambles. I've actually got to get my sandals.
The entire trip you walked barefoot. The entire trip barefoot, and there's just one mountain, remember, you went up, and maybe just another place where you had to put them on.
Israel is the thorniest place on this planet. And they were just like razors. You guys were wearing shorts and your legs were all cut up from these things. Yeah. But we had some good experiences and we got to walk, on some interesting places because of it. One of my favorite shots in the entire video is right outside of Anatote. You may not remember this, but you were filming me and I turned my face to you. And if you look closely, you can see you in one of my glasses and Yossi in the other one.
I can't believe this is where Jeremiah the prophet was raised, where he lived in the Bible. It's called Anatote.
If you look really closely in the video, you'll see that.
I did not see that.
Yeah, there were some fun things like that.
That is cool.
Yeah.
And then the donkey, that didn't make the video.
Oh, the donkey, that poor thing.
What happened to it?
I didn't want to put it in the video because it was too sad to see.
What's wrong?
On that hill right there,
Yeah.
you see it right here? On the top of this hill, there was a donkey attached, secured with a harness to a post.
In the middle of nowhere. There was nobody around. We could have taken the donkey. It was in the middle of nowhere and it had no water and it was just standing there in the heat of the day. Very sad to see.
Poor baby.
Yeah, poor donkey.
But donkeys can take this kind of stuff.
Oh, I guess they can.
Oh yeah, donkeys, they're very tough.
Yeah, and at the time it seemed sad, but then just a few feet further, remember we found a little settlement, a village behind that hill. So it's probably maybe theirs and they took it on a journey or something. I don't know how it works, but and so we finally get to the top and we see Jerusalem. At that point, I knew we were so beat, we were so tired that we have to take a final shot here. We didn't get to Jerusalem just quite yet. So you can see Jerusalem is still at a distance.
We didn't really get to Jerusalem at all. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Jerusalem was still at a distance, but I thought if we're not going to make it, because we're about to pass out, let's just take this final shot as we're going towards it. Maybe this will be the end. But let's keep filming, maybe we can still make it. And we still kept going, and then we walked for another few miles, made it all the way to the highway, and then past the highway, went to this place, and then we realized that the maps I'm using, Google Maps, took us through Area A, Palestinian territories. Not only Yossi and I can't go there, but it was entirely blocked by the wall and we just could not get in. That meant we had to go all the way around, backtracking another 2 or 3 miles just to get back on the way and then again go to Jerusalem. And
that was all because of the map server that you used or the map service.
Yeah, so if you use Google Maps in Israel, maybe today they already fixed that problem, I don't know, but originally it didn't differentiate territory A, area C, area B, or Israel. It was kind of just one big map. But Waze, the Israeli mapping system, does differentiate. So if I used Waze, we would have made it. But Waze is for cars primarily. I don't think you even can do there for walking. So we used Google Maps to get us the walking route. But yeah, that backfired.
It backfired badly.
It's funny you say it because you remember we're walking on the road and we're seeing all these green license plates. We're like, where are we? It's like, why is Google Maps taking us somewhere we're probably not supposed to be?
Yeah, Google Maps. Google Maps, if you use Google Maps, be careful because it can take you through territory A, which very often you can't go through because there's going to be a wall and you can't pass through.
So use hiking applications to hike. Don't use Google Maps for hiking. That's probably the biggest takeaway.
That's good lesson.
I don't know why you guys let me plan this whole hike.
But in the end, remember, we got rescued. When we learned that we need to go back, that kind of crushed my spirit almost
that's it. I don't think I have energy. I can feel my heart beating weirdly, maybe AFib or something. And I remember none of us smiled.
No, there was no smiling at this point.
But then he finally called and I told my parents, okay, we gotta go, run.
I remember that. It was so nice to finally hear your voice and saying you're coming to get us.
So, how's the experience, guys?
After we finished the hike, how long did it take your speech to come back?
Probably 15 or 20 minutes to be even able to speak.
We were driving back and you and Yossi were asleep.
Yes.
Was I snoring in the car too?
I think you were snoring again in the car.
My goodness. I think it's the beef jerky, Charlie.
Okay, so what are the favorite parts of this 2 days for you, Yossi?
I really love the views. I mean, walking. I mean, I haven't seen, it just reminds me of that Bible verse that, I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord. So walking up these hills, you're always looking up. You're always looking up. And especially when we're out of water and shade, I kept thinking that my help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. And we made it. I mean, it's just the views were so beautiful. But besides the views, I think the company of Charlie and Sergio, it was fun. It was funny. And even when it was really hard and tough, I mean, they really encouraged each other and myself, to keep going. And we did. I mean, just working as a team, as brothers, that was really amazing.
What about you, Charlie?
Well, two things I think are really memorable. The first one is when we were at the monastery. And Yossi was so excited about what he saw when he went into the monastery. If you listen to that part, his voice starts raising.
I just climbed to the base level. I said, okay, looks cool. But then I started going up and higher and higher. It's an amazing view. And I actually have a really nice life. I saw 3 apartments with electricity and plumbing. And I thought, you're not allowed to film there. But then I saw all the Russian pilgrims filming and taking pictures, so I took advantage and I took pictures and videos. So I got some good ones.
It's electricity or something like that. You could see the joy in his face, and it made it a really happy time for us because we didn't go in. Just your excitement about it. And then, as I said, the other thing that was just the most joyful as well is when Sergio finally took a break and got into the water with us, and the joy that just exudes from him. If you listen to that part of the video, it literally exudes from him as he lets out a giant laugh and just is splashing himself with water. And as you noted about the Lord, his presence, well, he's the water of life. And so here we are in this world, and we're just in the driest, barren wilderness, and along comes Christ, and we are filled with this water of life. And so you get the thought of what's going on in the Bible when you are in a place that the Bible describes, and you can understand the emotions of those writers of Scripture. Absolutely. You can just tie it all together. The joy of Yossi and the happiness of Sergio because of the fellowship and because of the water and because of everything that was going on. What about you?
Most memorable would be the aqueduct, first when we got to it, because after walking for half a day, getting to that aqueduct first and seeing that water was wow. The views, and at that point I wasn't as tired yet, so that was very, very pleasant. But then second was those great struggles that led to all these realizations, spiritual realizations in struggles. Also, Rhoda coming to the rescue also makes me think of the Good Samaritan who helped that person in need when we were sitting there in the end, almost helpless. And here Rhoda comes with her family and takes us home. What was your favorite part of this journey?
Getting you back.
No. So of all the people that watched the original video, a lot of questions were, how do we do this trip again? We actually have the map of the exact journey we took on our website, snrisrael.com, but we don't recommend you taking the exact same route. I don't know how you guys feel, but my recommendation would be just park by the St. George Monastery, hike down to the monastery, and then hike up to the water aqueduct, which is just beautiful. You'll get to see the mountains, you'll get to see the river, you'll get to see the aqueduct. For me, that would be the best trip What do you guys think?
I think that would be a good thing. If you just want to go and see the place and not have to go through all of the punishment that we went through, then I would agree with that. It's very simple. You can get there and there's other people there. It's, even older ladies were down there. So it's not a difficult thing. And then you can depart. And as you said, just walk up as far as the aqueduct. You can see the beautiful mountains in the distance and the barren wilderness. You've seen pretty much the highlights of it.
I think if they want an adventure, they should use Google Maps from the very beginning of this trail.
Yes, and just find out what happens.
Territory A and end up in Jerusalem.
Absolutely, or maybe end up in Jordan, you never know.
But take lots of water.
Remember, 3 liters per person
per day. Per day, that's correct.
Yeah. Well, part 2 this year.
Part 2. I'll watch you guys. I'll watch the video of you and Yossi doing that. I got a church to tend to.
That's it. That's all I had. We covered everything I had on the list.
Okay.
All right. So I think we need to bring this to conclusion. Now that you guys heard everything and got on the inside of what happened on this journey, you're now part of the circle of trust.
And the first rule of the circle of trust is don't talk about the circle of trust. Don't tell this to anybody.
What happens in this circle
stays in the circle. Absolutely.
Well, this is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Oh, you should say it. Yeah.
What should I say?
Close us out.
Close us out. Well, we hope you enjoyed this video. Don't subscribe and don't like it.
All right. We hope that you enjoyed this video. God bless you all, and the best is yet to come.
Amen. Bye-bye.
This is the Charlie handshake.
The happy Charlie shake.